Okay, I think we are back up and running. We have replaced the battery. Okay, we should have put that to the side. That away. Okay, try it again. The date is 9/17, and I had a audio malfunction. Had the battery go out of my recorder. And so I think a lot of people I think we got a bunch of dead air there. I am in module 5. We are in module 5. Module 5 is chapter 3. The reading assignment is chapter 3. I'm not going to use all of chapter 3, but we'll use most of it, and I'm using in class the PowerPoint presentation. Unfortunately, I think I have lost about an hour of the lecture here, so I'm just going to keep on going and try to get it from the PowerPoint. I regret that we lost some time there. Go back to my PowerPoint. PowerPoint slides are available to you on the student resources of Module 5. They will typically be available. Now, I don't use the PowerPoints every time. Some of them are better than others. What is modulo? The third one down. So we're talking about the arithmetic operators, modulo. The percent sign, yes. What does it mean? It means divide and take the remainder. Okay. Now, this is very commonly found in things like asking, is a number even or odd? It's used in quite a few things. Notice that multiplication, division, and modulo are all multiplication operators. So multiplication, division, modulo all have the same precedence from left to right. So if I take division, if I have only division and multiplication, it will be executed from left to right, just like you would do it in an algebra class. Nothing new here. Okay, followed by addition and subtraction from left to right as it encounters it. I really hope that it doesn't ever change. I'd really have trouble if that wasn't so. On time it's not so as in a few of the I don't know, the calculator pieces. Okay. Select statement that calculates the balance due. We're going to be using this one. Pay particular attention to it. Calculates the balance due. Select invoice total, payment total, credit total, and then invoice total minus the payment total minus the credit total. There are other ways you could have written that. You could have used parentheses and said the invoice total minus open parentheses payment total plus credit total. Okay. Questions? We're going to be using that one quite a bit. I think that's in the exercises. Uses parentheses. I'll let you look at that one. It's nothing new. I don't think, do I need to go into these order of operations anymore? Okay, good. I'm being told by the class that they understand that on modulo, give me the remainder. Okay. SQL works like C. in that if you divide two integers, you get just the quotient. If you want to cause it to do integer, to do floating point, you have to get a decimal point in there someplace. If you just divide and it's integer divided by integer, you will get an integer. If you have a floating point, you will get a decimal in your answer. What determines the sequence order of precedence? Parentheses, okay, thank you. Okay, left and right. Many times in a string operation, I want to just grab the far left piece of it, or maybe the far right. This particular one grabs the left one. I could have grabbed the left two characters. Putting these together, but grabbing left, right, you can get down to any particular character in there you want to. But for example, this says left one plus left one of the last name, and those are the initials. Questions? Could have said left three, and I would have gotten the first three letters. All right, we move on. Okay, here we go. Convert. There. Okay, let's see. Somebody joined. Okay, I'm going to send a chat to say, can you hear me? Is that somebody in the SCCJ 119? Is that somebody here that just joined? Okay, I'm going to say, chat, if you can hear me. Maybe I need to turn it on. Can you hear? We'll see if I get an answer. Okay, convert. Take a look at this. I want to concatenate a date. Now, in all programming languages, there is a way to switch from one data type to another. Okay, now a date is not a quoted string. A date is actually an integer. Under the covers, it's an integer. And it carries with it the information about what day. Actually, it's the number of clock ticks that have happened since Happy New Year 1970. So in order to use that, I want to use it in a quoted string. I have to convert that date to a string. Now, I'm saying convert this second line of that. I'm going to start right there where it says, well, let me go through this select. I want to select the string INVOICE colon. What do you call that? A pound sign? Yeah, okay, that'll work. Actually, its formal name is an octothorpe, but we'll call it a pound sign. Close the quote. Put the invoice number there, plus, open quote, comma, space, DATED, close the quote, plus, now I'm concatenating a string. I want to put the payment date there, but the payment date is not a string. I cannot concatenate the string with the date. It's not going to show it as a date. It might give me an error. It might do something really weird with it. So I have to convert that date to a string. We're going to talk more about this as we go on, but it says convert. The first one is convert it to what? The first argument is what do you convert it to? What is that in this case? Character string, a field of 8 characters. Okay? And the comma says payment date. Okay? And the one, I'm going to talk about the one. The one is formatting options, and it tells it how to do it. So one will display it as 01, 07, 12. So that's December 7th, 2012. And so the one tells it how to do it. If you put a 2 in there, it would be a different one. Now, those are covered in the chapter. Okay. So under convert formatting options for date, Google is your friend on these things. If you need to have to find out what the formatting options are, but one is the one we'll probably use. They are covered in the textbook. Okay, so a 2 would be a different format. A 5 might be, it might print out December. 6, it might print out capital DEC. So the various, I think there's 15 or 16 different formatting options. One is just a simple one. But that says convert it to a char 8. Okay. And then this one right there, for $, and convert the payment total to a varchar 9. Now, didn't exactly have to do the convert on the second one, but I do on the first one, and it's commonly done. Are there questions? I expect there usually are at this point. No questions. Okay, so if I wanted to see it, you can experiment a little bit with it. Try it with different numbers in there as the format option. In other words, we've got a 1 in there. Try it with a 2 and see how that changes the output. It will. It'll be the same date. It's just going to be formatted differently is all. So we converted it to a char 8. We said you'll have to give it at least 8 or you won't have enough space for it. I don't know what happens then. Yeah, yes, the 8 would include the back. So so the width of that field. I typically go to varchar on that, so I don't have to try to remember that it's real important that I not overflow that 8. Varchar can grow and shrink. So I would have used varchar on that one. So what do we have here? Okay, here's one that computes the age of an invoice. When we get to this one, you're going to find some radical differences between the dates that are in your database and the dates that are in the book. So it's going to talk about some things like find all the invoices before July of 2012. Well, it's not 2012 anymore. So our database has been brought forward. So we have current dates in our database. Get date. So select invoice date as today's date. I would not have done that. I would have just given it a name like look, see how it's doing it here? It's saying get date, and it's giving that a name. What is it giving it? Its name is today's date. Okay. I would have said TODAY, capital DATE. I would not have bothered putting that apostrophe in there. I don't think it's worth fooling with. Look at this next one. Date difference. Okay. In days, so DAY, so I can get the date difference in days or months or weeks. So date difference, day says give it to me in days. invoice date and today's date as age. Okay, so the invoice date is 4/2. So it subtracts the first one from the second one and gives you the answer in the number of days. Are you with me? Please. Thank you. That's a good question. Okay. Let me see if I can repeat your question for the, I hope I'm making a recording. We have aliased get date as, I would never have put an asterisk in that name. I would have named it X. Okay, let's say I say select get date as X. Can I use X later? What do I do? Do I use get date or do I use X? In general, and I'm going to tell you when you can, in general, the answer is no. In general, when you alias it, it's mostly for just the output. And this is because even though the select comes first as we write select from where, it comes last in its order of execution. So the first thing it does is it looks at which tables. So from is the first one that's executed. Then after that, the where is executed. And finally, at the very end, the select is executed. So it may be possible to use the today's date, but I don't think so. Okay, most of the time it won't. Most of the time when you alias it. Now we're going to see that you can alias the tables also. But they're the first thing that's executed, so yes, you can use those later. So just because of the order of the execution. We will not be able to use an aliased field because that is the last thing that happens. For a table, we can, and we'll get to that when we just haven't gotten there. But I'll be able to say from invoices as I, if I don't feel like writing it multiple times, and I'll be able to use that alias later. But on the select line, most of those you cannot use. There'll be some times when we can, and I'll point those out. Thank you. That's a good question. So this gives me the number of days between today's date minus the invoice date. So notice it's a little bit backwards there. It's the first one, it's the second one minus the first one. The start date, the end date. How many days passed? If I switched them around, I would have gotten a negative number. Okay. Terms, function, parameter, argument. Okay, guys. Do you have a difference in your, you know what is a function? Get date is a function. Returns today's date. F of x is 3x plus 7 is a function. It takes whatever you give it as x, multiplies it by 3, adds 7. What is an argument? Let's have an argument. Argument to a function. Very well. So let me back up here. Let's go to the date diff. Date diff is a function. It returns to us a number. It has 3 arguments. Yes, 3 arguments. How do you want to see it? In days or weeks or years or whatever? It has a starting date and an ending date. It just does a subtraction, gives you back the answer. That is a function. Okay. We're going to see, and to functions, we say that the arguments to this function are day. How do you want to see it? Days, weeks. You can see it in hours. The start date, the end date. Okay. Those are the arguments. What is a parameter? And this is kind of, I don't usually make a big deal out of this, but since it's here in the PowerPoints, I'll cover it briefly. What is a parameter? Okay. Do I have any? I don't have any answers on my chat. I ask if people can hear. I guess I'll find out when I turn it off in a few minutes and try to go back through it. Testing. Test. Oh. Okay, I'm showing I've got audio. Okay. And besides a function, there are what we call procedures. A procedure is a canned routine that does something for us. So when you said create table, that was a procedure. And sometimes procedures can they can act on their parameters. They can change the parameters, maybe not. Now, I go into a big long deal on this in my C class, but a function in most of what we're going to use in SQL will be functions. Most of the time, computer scientists tend to use parameter and argument interchangeably. Ideally, an argument is something that you give a function, only a function. A parameter is something that goes to a procedure. So I can have a procedure of how you fill out a grade book or something. Okay, you take all your grades, add them up, divide by how many, and this has parameters that you work with. A function would be f of x is 3x plus 7. X is the argument to the function. Computer scientists tend to use them interchangeably. Let's see where it goes with this. I'm going to try to get through these slides today. Okay, we've seen this one, a select statement that returns all rows. Select statement that eliminates duplicate rows uses the select distinct in it. Questions on that? Pretty straightforward. Eliminates duplicate rows. Select statement with a top clause. Select top 5. Now, I told you that a table has no order. Didn't I? Yeah. Well, so what is this business with top 5? Okay. And the idea being that a table has no order, but the query has an order. And remember, I told you that the select was the last thing that was executed. Therefore, it gets the invoices. It applies the where. First, it asks what table. Then the second thing that happens is the where clause is applied. This one doesn't have a where clause, but it would be applied. Third thing that happens is the order by applies, then the select. So by the time we get to the top clause and the select, it does have an order because we put one on it. Okay. So it really only makes sense to say, give me the top 5 records if you have ordered it. Otherwise, you don't know what you're going to get. Question. So you have to have an order by in there before it makes sense to use the top. You can say top 100. You can say top 10. You will probably get the top 5 sorted by the primary key. if you don't say. But it always, if you're going to say top 5, it will always have an order by. If you don't say descending, this particular one says order by invoice total descending. If you don't say descending, you're going to get it in ascending order. So you don't have to say ascending. It's okay if you don't. It's not wrong if you do. Okay, question, top 5. Let's see, does the next one, I believe, do percent? Yes, top 5%. You can say, give me the top 5%. That should have an order by. Again, needs an order by. We're going to run into some issues with that later when we try to. But for right now, because it's a query, because it's an SFW query, it has order to it. This is where we pick up order. Tables don't have order. Notice there's a lot of slides here. Select top, add the with ties. What is this? Select top 5 with ties. I've never used this one. Okay, I guess what this is, it gave me more than 5 because I say I want the top 2 students in the classroom, okay? So it gives me the top 2 grades and everybody that conforms to that. So if you say with ties, for example, the top invoice date is, okay, so the top 5 invoice dates are 8, 10, 13, and 16. And the ties here, there are 3 of them that tied, so I'm seeing more than 5. We're not going to use that one a whole lot. I'm just trying to, this thing is dinging. I'm trying to figure out if somebody's trying to communicate or what. When you say with ties, okay, I want the winner of some contest that we're having. So the winner is the person with the most points. If we have a tie for the top position, I want to see all of them. I don't want to see just one. Okay, so that's the with ties. So show me the top 1 with ties. So in that case, if I have ties for the highest value, I'm going to see more than 1. Right. Okay. I want to show me the highest grade in the class, and 3 people have a grade of 100. That's the highest grade. I will see all 3 of them in the output. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, and I am not real. The with ties keyword is something that's brand new here, fairly new. We haven't had that for very long, and I haven't used it a whole lot. I'm going to punt that one, and I'm going to say I'll get back to you on that. I don't believe I have anything in the exercises that asks you to do with ties. So I'm going to test it, get back to you with a better explanation of what with ties means. It's in the SQL standard. So if the database platform is SQL standard compliant to 2004, I believe, then it will be in there. I'm gonna have to work on my explanation for the with ties. Let me get back to you on with ties. I promise I'll do that the next time. Getting a little rattled on my audio, and I'm, good grief, how many slides do I have left? I'm not going to get through these slides today, am I? Here's one comparison operator, the where clause with the comparison operators. I am on slide 32, going to go quickly here. The only thing that is different here is look at the last one, not equal to. SQL typically uses what we call the diamond inequality, less than followed immediately by a greater than. SQL does, by its syntax of SQL, says it also uses exclamation point equal, like in C is there. The diamond inequality, this one right here, is the preferred not equal to. The rest of them are very straightforward. Okay. Comparison is one equal sign. And later we're going to talk about, well, there's another language that goes with this. Examples of like where vendor state is equal to IA, where it's greater than 0, less than. Last one, where credit total is not equal to 0. Now, the only fly in this ointment is null. The only fly in this ointment is when you have a null value. None of those will return a null value. So, for example, if I said I want to see everybody whose age is greater than or equal to 21 in this group, everyone whose age is less than 21 in this group, one would think that I would get the entire class. I should. But because of null, if a person does not have a birth date, they will not appear in the output of either of those. Okay. So these guys, that's greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, does not apply to null, ever. You cannot use any form of relational operator with null. I'm just about out of time. And or not. Questions on and or not? I'm going to try to get through this, and then we will break until next class period. Check and see if I've got my audio up and running. Okay, which comes first? Let's see. In order to qualify for the Naval Marksmanship Badge, you must actually hit the ocean with 5 bullets. And you must attend safety training or complete the online module. I have an and an or. Which one happens first? Important. And happens first. And always happens first. So if I said you must, in order to qualify for a sharpshooter rifle, you must hit the ocean and attend safety class or do the online module. If you only did the online module, you would qualify. Why? Because we're going to put the and together first. That's true or false. Or the module. If you do the module, that statement is true. And comes first. I'm saying if it's A and B or C, whatever they are, If C is true, that statement is true. If you don't have parentheses. Well, let me just get it with and or in there. If it is C or A and B, if C is true, the statement is true. The or would pull it to true because the and will get put together first. It's either true or false. Okay, I don't know. But if it's, then I've got C or whatever that was. If C is true, the statement is true. Okay, so the precedence of and or is that and comes first. Think of and as multiplication. Or is addition. Not is negation. And now if you were figuring out, so just for every place you have and, think of it as multiplication. Every place you have or, add. Anytime you have not, think of it as a negative sign. Not applies first. Not applies only to what it's stuck to. Then after that, put the ands together. After that, apply the or. That becomes a lot more important in programming. That is okay. Let me state that for the tape, and I think we're going to end here. It's about noon. Question was if the if I say A and B, and it looks at A and finds it to be false, does it evaluate B? The answer is you don't know. Okay. So, for example, if x is not equal to 0, if x is not equal to 0 and 1 over x is greater than 5. Now, think about it. If x is equal to 0, first one is false, the second one will provoke division by 0. Okay. Now, in many compilers, some compilers, C and Java, for example, if the first one is false, it stops. It is guaranteed to stop. So false and something else. Does it matter what the something else is? Okay, it's false. Well, if something is false, and do I have to look at the second one? No, no. Many languages will, because C is guaranteed to do that. That is called short circuit Boolean evaluation. SQL is not guaranteed. SQL is not guaranteed that it will not. SQL, you don't get a known order. So I've got A and B or C. I'm not guaranteed that they're going to get evaluated in that order. They might just all get evaluated at once. We don't know. SQL, we can't count that, so we have to break it into multiple statements. That's going to become important if you take the next class, which is programming. Okay. Visual Basic does not. So if you did something like if x is not equal to 0 and 1 over x is greater than 5 and x were 0, that program would crash because it's going to try to do them both at the same time. C will be fine. So some are, some aren't. And that's just, it's kind of like, does your car have anti-lock brakes? Gee, I am on, where am I on here? 34. Okay, I'm going to make the assignment, and I'll have to make this in writing too because I've cut off some of the beginning of the lecture on the recording. I will, the assignment is going to be Module 5 and Chapter 3 reading. The exercises will be the exercises in Module 5, and I will set up the due date. Okay. I expect it will be Friday. Now, that means that you're going to get, it's going to be due a little bit before. I'll probably put the due date as Friday because I usually like to put my due dates on Friday. The fact of the matter is that I'm not going to grade it until Tuesday at least on the train. So if you turn it in next weekend, that'll be fine. I just usually assign it and then make it due the following week. And you should be starting to get it surrounded. I will be available on the messaging. So if you have any problems, feel free to shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to look at your code. And from that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the lecture here, and hope I got some video, or hope I got some audio on this part. Now let me find out. Very well, I believe. Every one of them that I've checked does. So the reading assignment is all of Chapter 3 and all of Module 5. And then there's some stuff that I don't cover real heavily. For example, the with ties. Okay, I'm going to end the meeting, and I'm going to see if I have audio.